Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. His knock hit hard, 3 fast beats while my phone buzzed. I opened the text without breathing. His name glared. Another knock, closer, like he leaned in. I slid the chain and the door moved an inch. "I'm Mara, 43, I told myself, steadying. The peephole framed his face, older, careful, focused. I cracked the door, cold air slipped through. He lifted a hand, open palm, asking for calm. 5 minutes, he said, no smile now. My son rustled upstairs, bed springs creaked once. I kept the chain, fingers white on metal. "Make it 1, I said, forcing command. He nodded, gaze flicking past my shoulder. I blocked the gap with my knee. "Not inside," I added, pushing the door out. We moved to the stoop because distance felt safer. He stood on the lower step, chin tilted. "Got your number from an old thread." "I shouldn't be here," he added, then stayed. Every part of me braced for the next word. "I'm engaged," I blurted, clean lie, sharp edge. He exhaled once, then checked the street. "Then you'll say no fast," he answered. I tasted metal and waited for the sting. "My past just hit my today," he said. "Something opened that should have stayed shut." He held up a cracked phone, screen spidered. A notification pulsed like a vein. "Read it," he said, wrist tight. A message sat above my full name. "Meet me by the gym at 9. My fingers twitched, wrong cadence, wrong voice. "That's not mine," I said, throat dry. "Came from your number," he replied, eyes steady. Another bubble followed under it, "Don't come." The timestamps lined up like traps. A car rolled past, slow, hunting a spot. We waited in silence until it turned. "You think I wrote these?" I asked. "Proof says yes, everything else argues no." The porch light buzzed and dimmed, thin flicker. I thought of keys and the chain again. "I have a sleeping kid," I whispered. He tucked the phone away like a blade. "I'll be fast," he said, shoulders squared. "I saw you near the old field today." My stomach dropped, he had been close already. "Did you follow me?" I asked, no softness. "Twice." I turned away, he admitted, looking down. "Tonight I didn't," his jaw set hard. "I need the right version of that night." He watched me like an answer lived here. "What do you actually want?" I pressed, leaning in. "Clarity," he said, the word felt loaded. "Then also permission to disappear after." That last part throbbed like a dare. A window next door clicked, somebody listening slow. I stepped one stair lower, reducing the angle. "What changed?" I asked, feeling the shift. He glanced at his car, then back, decision forming. He lifted a folded photo, old edges, crisp center. "Take it," he said, but didn't release it. I kept my hand down, made him talk first. His fingers tightened until the paper creased. "I can't do this on your steps," I said. He blinked, accepting the boundary without fight. "Tomorrow," he offered, voice low and sure. 10 old gym, bring your no if needed. My door behind me ticked as heat kicked. I weighed risk against sleep and the kid. "Text when you arrive," I said, the gate opening. He nodded once like a contract sealed. He backed away 2 steps, eyes never leaving mine. "Thanks for not slamming the door," he murmured. I didn't answer, couldn't, wouldn't, shouldn't. He turned for the sidewalk, then stopped. "One more thing," he added, hand half raised. "If you don't come, I'll understand." The line sounded gentle yet not harmless. I watched him walk into the thin dark. I locked the door, forehead to wood. My pulse climbed, then steadied, then climbed again. On the table, my phone lit up twice. 2 new calls, unknown number, same tight timing. I silenced everything, then left it face down. From upstairs, a sleepy cough, then quiet. I breathed in 4s like the clinic taught me. It almost worked until the photo's crease echoed. I unfolded it alone, no sound, no commentary. 2 teenagers at lockers, hopeful, dumb, unaware. Behind them, a shadowed figure watching with intent. The silhouette felt like a door half open. I slid the photo under a cookbook, temporary burial. Tomorrow had coordinates, now 10 old gym. I killed the light and stood in the dark. His knock still pulsed in the walls. I woke to vibration on the nightstand, 3 alerts in a row. Unknown number again, same spacing as last night. 1 text waited, 10 still on, don't be late. My throat tightened as if the room shrank. I checked the hallway, quiet. The picture from last night lay under the cookbook. I slid it out and kept it face down. If I looked, I might cancel everything. Breakfast was fast because I made it fast. My boy 8 watched me and didn't ask. Shoes on, backpack zipped, door locked. I kissed his head, then lied I'd be fine. The first call hit while I buckled him in. I muted it and watched the street. A sedan idled across the corner with fogged glass. It pulled away only when I stepped forward. School drop-off went smooth. Off because speed kills questions. I waved once and stayed until he vanished inside. On the way back, the unknown number tried again. I let it ring out, heart steady by force. Home at last, I placed the picture on the counter. I studied the edges without flipping it. Was that my handwriting in those messages? I needed proof, not ghosts, not doubts. I screenshotted last night's texts with his name. I printed them because screens lie too easily. The paper cooled me down, hard facts help. I wanted a reason that didn't wreck me. The phone flashed again, new text. If you're scared, don't come, no shame. I typed and erased 5 replies in a minute. I sent only one word, coming. Another ping, bring the picture. So he knew I kept it. He wanted me to carry it there. Fine, I'd put it on the table. I changed into neutral clothes and tied my hair. No jewelry, no noise, no tells. I pocketed the printouts in a small notebook. Prepared but not armed, not yet. At 9:20, I took the back route. Hands at 10 and 2, spine locked. A delivery truck blocked the main turn. I cut left and saw the sedan again. It held me for 4 lights with patience. I drifted into a gas station and parked. It cruised past without a glance. My shoulders dropped 1 notch, not 2. I reached the old campus 10 minutes early. The lot looked scraped and patched like a scar. A groundskeeper pushed a bin toward the field. He watched me once, then moved on. 9:55, no sign of him yet. A pair of runners looped the track without hurry. I sat on the lowest row and counted breaths. Every count ended with the same question. 10 sharp, his car eased in and stopped clean. He got out with empty hands raised. I stood and kept distance until he waved once. He seemed lighter and heavier at the same time. You came, he kept his voice quiet. Spit it out, I kept my feet planted. He nodded and took 1 careful step. I brought the thing you asked for. I held up the picture midair. He didn't reach for it, he waited. Something else first, he added with a glance. His jaw clicked like he swallowed the wrong word. A new message appeared on his screen. He turned it so I could read. Be careful, she lies. The number looked unfamiliar. I raised an eyebrow and put my hands down. Who sent that? My voice didn't shake. Not her, he answered, eyes darting left. The runners veered toward the exit and left us out here. He shifted weight like the ground moved. Show me the thread, I said. He opened a folder with timestamps and names. Every line balanced with another line. The pattern felt too clean to be chance. A whistle blew from somewhere behind the bleachers. We both turned and saw no one. Walk the track, I said, needing motion. We moved side by side without touching. I talked to someone this morning, he began. I cut him off with a poem. No speeches, give me a piece I can test. He swallowed and tried again with fewer words. The messages were forged, source traced. They used your number through a spoofing app. I have an affidavit and a copy of the logs. And a name I can't verify yet. We stopped at the back gate with its loose latch. Air smelled like cut grass and metal rain. I pressed the picture to my chest and decided. Give me the affidavit now. He handed over a sealed envelope with neat seams. I bent a flap and checked signatures. 2 names, a stamp, dates that made sense. The paper trembled against my fingers, not from wind. I lifted the picture and finally looked. 2 kids frozen near locker doors. Behind them, a narrow face angled toward us. My gut clenched like recognizing a street before a crash. Her, I said, tapping that face once. His eyes hardened without moving from mine. Not just her, he whispered, breath short. There was someone else behind the curtain. Another whistle, closer, and then nothing. I scanned the shadows and felt watched. We stood there until the feeling broke. I slid the picture back under the affidavit. You want me to chase this? I asked. He shook his head and held the fence. I want you to choose with complete information. His hands were steady, mine were almost. Last question today, I told him. Why stir it if we can't verify yet? He looked at my knuckles and then up. Because waiting cost us once already. I checked the time, 10:32. I had to pick up my life and move. I'll read the affidavit and call tonight. I started walking, then a car door slammed. The sedan rolled in from the east lot. Same slow glide, windows too dark for faces. It circled once like a hawk and parked near us. The engine stayed on as if deciding. Keep walking, I murmured, never breaking stride. We exited through the side gate and didn't look back. Behind us the engine revved and then calmed. Adrenaline dumped through me like a cold rinse. In my car, I opened the driver's door. He stood across from me with careful distance. 7, I said, voice low and final. He nodded once and put on sunglasses. I slid the envelope under the floor mat. I started the engine and checked the mirror. The sedan remained idling, facing the track. It felt like a promise rather than a warning. I pulled out, merged, and didn't speed. Halfway home, a new text arrived from unknown. Nice reunion, careful with old fires. I deleted it, then felt the burn anyway. I locked the door behind me, then checked it again. The envelope went on the table with the photo. I snapped a picture of the seal for my notes. I needed a trail that nobody else could bend. I called the number on the affidavit and waited. A receptionist answered with crisp patience and no warmth. Verify a document number, I asked, voice even. Keys clicked, then a pause that stretched like a wire. It matches, she said, then lowered her tone. Who are you to the signer? Recipient, I answered, keeping it tight. Be careful, she added and ended the call. Be careful from a stranger felt like a flare. I took a steady sip of water and paced. I photographed every page and stored copies in cloud. Redundancy meant I could move without begging mercy. The phone pulsed again, new text from a new source. Enjoy the nostalgia, don't forget who started it. I screen grabbed and archived it with time and number. Patterns form when you stack enough small pieces. I drove to the school early and parked crooked. 3 parents chatted by the crosswalk with bored eyes. A dark coupe rolled past my bumper and slowed. I wrote down the plate and shifted in my seat. The bell rang and bodies poured out fast. My kid ran up and threw a look. You okay? He asked, scanning my face. Homework first, then games, I answered, choosing normal as armor. At home, I set him up at the table. I opened the envelope beside the sink and read. Every line pointed at the same orchestration. 3 numbers, 1 familiar, 2 ghosts with teeth. I dialed the familiar contact with my jaw clenched. It rang long, then clicked, and nobody spoke. Air hissed on the other end like static. Name yourself, I said, fingers pressed white on granite. A single laugh, tight and practiced, drifted through. Still direct, a woman murmured, voice low. Meet tonight, I told her, no tremble. Bring your courage, she whispered, then cut the line. So the shadow had a mouth and a schedule. 7 with him, another meeting now implied. 2 fronts in one evening stretched my margin thin. I texted my sister and asked for backup pickup. She replied fast, on my way, no lecture. Relief hit sharp and useful, not soft. I handed off a quick hug at the curb. I'll be back before bedtime, I promised and meant it. Back inside, I loaded a recording app and tested. I coached myself out loud, short lines and cues. No speeches, ask, confirm, exit. I practiced until my voice stopped shaking. The coupe reappeared once outside and crept by. I stepped to the porch with my phone raised. Took 2 obvious photos and waved like a dare. It sped off after the second flash, message received. I left for the meeting point at 6:30. Different route, different lanes, different lot. I parked near a camera and walked slow. I wanted them to feel watched for once. He arrived on time and stayed in the open. He lifted a hand but didn't come closer. Change of plan, I said, keeping momentum. There's a second conversation at 8. Alone, he asked, drawing a tight breath. Not if you want a witness, I countered. He waited, then nodded once. Where, he asked, and I named a public place. We circled the track once to trade facts. I showed the plate photo and the latest text. He pulled up a number linked to a dead app. We cross-checked and found a match in his file. You keep files now, I asked, eyebrow raised. He glanced at the affidavit and shrugged once. Grief turns people into clerks, he answered, half bitter. That line cut him open more than he planned. I pulled us back to the target with a look. We go in with structure, I said, calm now. You open, I follow, we keep recording. He agreed with a nod and set his jaw. We walked off the field and toward our cars. The coupe waited 3 rows down like a dog. It flicked headlights twice and quieted again. I pointed at it and kept walking anyway. Does she know you're here? He asked low. She knows everything except what I'll decide, I answered. He smiled without joy and checked his watch. Then let's give her less time to prepare. On the drive over, I watched mirrors without blinking. I took one detour through a well-lit street. The coupe held back and then vanished completely. That absence felt worse than a tail by inches. We entered the lobby and chose a table near exits. I placed my phone screen down with the app running. He did the same and leaned forward slightly. Footsteps approached like a countdown I couldn't stop. She arrived on the dot and pulled back her hood. Older, still exact, eyes like knives, not jewels. Look at you, she said, lips barely moving. She took the chair and didn't ask permission. Why the reruns? I asked, voice flat. She smiled at the corners and folded her hands. Because unfinished business chews through sleep, she replied. Her glance flicked toward him like a tiny blade. You used my number once, I pressed, keeping tempo. Her mouth twitched, not denial, not confession. Prove it, she whispered, leaning an inch closer. He slid the affidavit across and tapped the date. She scanned it, blinked, and stifled a laugh. That's cute, she said, fingers drumming once. Your witness died last year. My stomach dropped, something in that line rang true. He stiffened and checked the signature again. He whispered a name under his breath and swore. Her smile widened a fraction as she watched him. She had just punched a hole I couldn't patch here. I anchored us with the goal and pressed harder. Who fed you my schedule back then? I asked. Her eyes drifted to the window and rested. You knew him, she said, then looked at me. Heat crawled up my neck and settled behind my ears. I kept my face blank and my breathing slow. She enjoyed the silence and leaned into it. Coach's assistant, she added, savoring the drop. He recoiled like a wire yanked from a wall. I stared at the table and pictured roots. If that was real, the map withdrew instantly. We were in deeper than a jealous prank. Why tell us now? I pushed, anchoring again. She uncapped a pen and spun it idly. Because you stirred the pond today, she said. And because someone else is shopping your name. Someone else, not her, not him, another player. I felt the clock hammering behind my ribs. What do they? Why want? I asked, cutting the distance. She stopped the pen and finally looked afraid. Leverage, she whispered, voice losing its edge. For what? I asked, already knowing the shape. For whatever comes next between you two. She stood fast and scraped the chair back hard. Text me the assistant's current address, I ordered. She paused at the end of the aisle and nodded once. You'll regret this sprint, she tossed over her shoulder. Then she was gone and the room breathed again. We sat in the echo and didn't move. He rubbed his temples and stared at the affidavit. It's still usable, I said, not fully believing. He nodded, but his eyes carried new weight. My phone buzzed, an address arrived without a name. A second message followed with a single word. Tonight. I lifted my head and felt the next door unlock. I parked a block from the address and killed the engine. He slid into the passenger seat without knocking. We synced our recorders with a quick glance. Short questions, no room for spin, I whispered. We approached the door like it might bite. I pressed the bell and kept my shoulders square. Footsteps dragged, then paused just behind wood. Open up, I said, steady but not soft. The chain scraped, then cleared, then stopped again. A man filled the gap with wary eyes. You remember us? I asked, lifting the envelope. His gaze darted to the street like a habit. 2 minutes, he muttered, backing toward the hall. We stepped inside the threshold, but not deeper. He locked the door and stared at my hands. Leave if you're here to gossip. Not gossip, verification, I answered, holding the line. Who fed her? My routine back then. He rubbed one temple and laughed without mirth. You came to me instead of the cops. This isn't a police matter yet, I returned. It's a phone matter and a gatekeeper. He leaned against the frame and stopped blinking. You think I made the switch? I think you routed messages, I said calmly. From an app through my number. He glanced at my partner and sized him up. Always the athlete, always the shadow. No nostalgia tonight, I cut in sharply. Did you pass my details to her? He exhaled through his nose and dropped his chin. I passed them to someone who asked. Who asked? I pushed, not moving my feet. He reached for a drawer and I stiffened. He pulled out a battered phone and waved it. Check the contact labeled fixer. I didn't touch the device yet. Read the number aloud, I told him. He recited digits slow and precise. I memorized the pattern like a threat. Why help them? My partner asked, jaw tight. Because they helped me with a problem. What kind? I asked, hearing the trap close. Debt, he answered, eyes finally meeting mine. So you sold my path for a favor, I said. He winced, then straightened like taking a punch. They promised it was harmless and short. Promises are cheap, I shot back. He slid the phone across the entry table. Call the contact and listen to the greeting. I tapped speaker and placed it between us. A recorded voice answered with a single phrase. Leave the time and the target. My stomach tightened as the message repeated. He watched me absorb it and nodded once. You asked for proof, that's the voice. I ended the call and studied his face. How many times did you deliver my hours? 3, he whispered, guilt finally cracking through. Always at night, always before games. Not enough, I said, feeling heat rise. Who paid you and how? He hesitated, then opened a cabinet and pointed. A shoebox sat inside with rubber bands. I stayed where I was and lifted my chin. Bring it out here and step back. He obeyed like he knew the script. Cash receipts and a folded card spilled. I took the card first and unfolded it. A single symbol, then a burner number. Same emblem from the message header, my partner breathed. We photographed everything and returned the stack. Last piece, I said, thumb on record. Did the woman know you were the courier? She knew the drop times, he answered quickly. She never spoke to me directly. I felt something shift under that line. He was shielding someone higher than jealousy. Who handled pickup? I asked, keeping focus tight. A man with a limp and a hat. I caught a glance at my partner and saw recognition. He opened his notes and found a detail. A campus guard from that year had a limp. He wrote the name but didn't speak it. Do not call Fixer again, I warned. If they reach out, alert me immediately. He looked at my partner like asking permission. Do it, my partner said, voice quiet and hard. We stepped outside and closed the door gently. Night air held a wet bite that pushed decisions. Guard with a limp, I said under my breath. He nodded once, eyes scanning the parked cars. The compact hatchback eased past the corner and paused. Not the same tail from earlier, but cousin enough. I raised my phone in a sen. Up 2 shots. The hatchback rolled off with a lazy turn. We reached my car and stood between doors. Next stop, he asked, steadying himself. Guard's last known address, I answered, unlocking. Then we call someone who can verify logs. On the way, my phone vibrated once. A text from a new alias pinged open. Nice visit, try not a trip. I gripped the wheel and kept speed lawful. We cut through a strip of warehouses and slowed. The address pinned a unit with a dented gate. A light burned behind a narrow window. We parked near a camera and exited together. I knocked with 3 short beats and waited. Footsteps shuffled, then halted, then reversed. Security check, I called, borrowing confidence. The lock retracted and the door cracked. A heavy man peered out and frowned hard. What do you want at this hour? Answers, I said, meeting his glare. His gaze slid to my partner and stuck. Recognition flashed like metal and vanished. He started to close the door without speaking. My partner wedged a foot and leaned in. Talk now or we come back louder. The guard studied the foot and considered options. He opened wider and waved toward a bare chair. We stayed standing and formed a triangle. Ask and leave, he grunted, arms crossed. Who ran the routing service called Fixer? I started. He stared at a stain on the floor and waited. Say the name or give a location. The silence grew teeth and bit down. Finally, he tapped the side of his leg. Look at me, he muttered, angry at himself. They hired me to hand off envelopes. Names were above my pay grade. Where did the handoffs happen? I asked quickly. Behind the old gym equipment closet, he answered. What time? My partner added, voice even. 10:05, never late, never early. My chest tightened at the precision. Who collected? I pushed, refusing to blink. A woman with a scarf and a laugh, he said. Sometimes a tall man waited near the stairs. You ever hear the tall man speak? I asked. Once, he replied, scratching his jaw. He called her by a nickname and thanked me. What nickname? I asked, leaning forward. Vyth, he said, and shut his eyes. The word hit like a thrown bolt. My partner and I exchanged a laser look. That nickname belonged to a very specific circle. I checked the time and felt the window closing. We're done here for tonight, I said sharply. Expect questions from someone in a suit. He flinched like he understood the new temperature. Back in the car, we didn't start the engine. We listened for any movement behind the units. A door clanged somewhere far down the row. That nickname narrows the field to 3, he murmured. I opened a map and marked 3 pins. One belonged to a booster with deep pockets. One belonged to a substitute who liked secrets. One belonged to a tech who ran phone trees. My phone buzzed once more and froze me. A fresh photo arrived from an unknown contact. It showed us standing at the guard's doorway. Caption read, "Keep moving or we knock first." I showed him the screen and waited. He clenched his teeth and rolled his shoulders. We split for the next step, I decided. He stared at me, then nodded against his fear. You go home and lock in, I ordered. I will trace the phone tree lead. I'm not leaving you alone with this, he countered. I won't be alone, I said, dialing a name. A voice picked up on the second ring. Ready for that favor, I asked, eyes on mirrors. The answer came without hesitation or doubt. Tell me where to meet and bring copies. I ended the call and put the car in gear. We pulled out together and chose different exits. In the mirror, the hatchback reappeared and tailed him. I turned left and went hunting for Vice. I reached the meet point and left the engine running. A woman in a blazer stepped from a rideshare and waved once. She tucked hair behind one ear and scanned the lot. Show me your best proof, she said, clipped and ready. I gave her the phone tree contact and the nickname. She typed both fast and pinched the bridge of her nose. That alias appears in 3 old stings, she murmured. 2 local, 1 interstate, all unfinished. Can you pull subscriber history? I asked, holding steady. Only if you don't breathe my name, she replied. She requested a secure line and angled her body away. Static, then a monotone confirmed the field was hot. We get one try tonight, she decided, eyes narrowing. After that they'll ghost every handset. I slid the printed logs across the hood. She skimmed timestamps like counting footprints in wet sand. Her phone chimed, ping acquired, she announced flatly. Industrial Park by the river, South Bay door. I texted him a single word, south. His reply came quick, on my way. We formed a plan with 3 short lines. She drives, I knock, he blocks the rear. If they run, we capture plates and voices. No speeches, cut to bone. On the ride over, she briefed with bullet beats. No hero moves, anchor your questions to times. Force them to deny specifics, not feelings. Watch for his second recorder under the table. We parked near a security camera and waited 10 seconds. He slid in behind us from the access road. He pointed at a stack of pallets near an exit. Ambush there if anything goes weird. I approached the bay door and rapped 4 times. Metal answered with a hollow pulse like a warning. A slot slid open and an eye blinked. Delivery, I said, level and bored. The latch popped and the door rolled a foot. A thin man peered out with a limp and a grin. My breath turned into a measured beat inside my chest. Looking for Vice, I said, making it a statement. He smirked and widened the gap just enough. Vice isn't a person, he murmured while assessing shoes. It's a service level, you don't qualify. He started to close and I wedged my forearm. Then downgrade me and answer 2 questions, I pushed. He weighed the risk, then relented half an inch. Question 1, he prompted, tapping the frame. Who sent those midnight directives using my line? He laughed once, soft and cruel. Clients buy obfuscation, not biographies. Question 2, I shot back, not blinking. Why tag our meeting tonight within minutes? He flicked his gaze over my shoulder toward the pallets. Because you still carry predictable habits, he said. But you finally brought friends. The door opened wider, enough for a corridor and footsteps. A woman stepped out with a scarf and a scar. She clocked my stance and the running recorder instantly. Close the toys, she said, chin tilting toward my phone. I kept it on, she noted the defiance and smiled. You're shopping my name, I said, keeping tone flat. To whom, for what price? She rubbed her thumb against 2 knuckles thoughtfully. Your story has buyers, she replied, eyes bright. Buyers, I felt heat rise but kept voice calm. Leverage for narrative, you too, the past, redemption. She raised both brows like an auctioneer warming up. People love arcs, especially messy ones. Who's paying, I asked, pushing her into a corner. Booster with deep pockets, also a nostalgic rival. She shrugged with weary authority and leaned on the frame. Nothing illegal, just hunger. Hunger broke our lives once, he growled from behind me. She studied him like a specimen pinned to cork. "Welcome back to the board," she murmured. He stepped forward and I put a hand up. "Names," I demanded, palm steady, pulse loud. "Or I walk out and melt your pipeline." She glanced at the limping doorman, then at the alley. "Find 2 initials, J and R." "J for the booster," my partner muttered through clenched teeth. "R for the substitute who loves gossip." She clapped once, amused by our speed. "You still click even after the time gap." I cut the momentum before she steered again. "You forged those meet messages, confirm it." She tilted her head like hearing an old track. "We go," strode the tone, bar at the root. Through my number, I pressed within inches now. Via spoof and a friendly gatekeeper. She smiled toward the thin man beside her. He lifted both hands with performative innocence. "Why now?" I asked, kneading the hinge. She traced a line in the dust with a nail. "Because we heard about the hospital visit," she said. My stomach dropped hard enough to scrape bone. I looked at him fast, he stiffened. "Your father," I whispered, searching his face. He nodded once, jaw cabled, eyes glassing. The thin man's smile vanished like a mask slipping. I rotated back to her with a new blade. "You reached out right after the funeral," I realized. She didn't deny it, she watched me calculate. "Pain is a lever when people are off balance." "You'll deliver a full list tonight," I said. "Every contact who touched my data." "You don't command me," she replied, tired of posture. I leaned forward until our noses almost touched. "I have recordings from your door and the message line," I said. "I have plates and timestamps and the guard's confession. By morning I can draft a complaint that sticks. Or you can trade names and cut losses." The limping man shifted, ready to shut it down. She lifted a single finger and froze him. "Give her the ledger," she ordered, voice gone dry. He disappeared into the corridor, muttering curses. She dropped her tone to a near whisper meant for me. "Your crush is not your shield," she said. "He's bait for buyers with nostalgia and money. Protect him or he'll be content by dawn." He exhaled like swallowing a blade. "Oh." I kept my eyes on her and didn't move. "List first," I said through teeth I barely unclenched. "We negotiate exposure second." The limper returned with a tablet wrapped in a sleeve. He hesitated, then offered it with 2 fingers. "It logs jobs, payments, and routing notes," he said. "Names are partial until verified." I scrolled and found more than initials. Real numbers, drop sites, repeat clients. 3 tabs tied to the old campus corridors. A 4th tab flagged a broadcast scheduled for midnight. Midnight meant we were already late. "What goes live tonight?" I asked fast. She didn't blink as she answered. "Your story, cut as a serial teaser." I zoomed the entry, 2 hosts, 1 sponsor. The sponsor matched Jay's enterprise with perfect symmetry. I gripped the tablet and took a long breath. "Cancel it or I file and burn your network." "Too late," the limper chuckled, tapping his knee twice. "It's preloaded and queued on distributed clouds. Even we can't yank it clean." My ally beside me swore under his breath. "Then we drown it with a counter," I said. "Proof first, our version, names under seal." The blazer woman stepped closer and nodded once. "We can timestamp a public record in 30 minutes. The scarfed woman adjusted her stance like accepting terms. "You'll need a witness to bridge 2 timelines," she noted. "Somebody who saw the handoffs and knows the clients." Her eyes slid to the limper like a cue. He flinched and looked at the floor. "Don't drag me into court," he pleaded quietly. "You're already in," I answered, not blinking. "Make it cheaper by staying useful." A van rolled past the alley mouth and braked. We all stilled and counted to 3. Doors did not open, the engine didn't die. Predators wait for mistakes, not invitations. She weighed the van, then angled toward me. "We escort you to a neutral room," she offered. "You copy the ledger and sign a temporary truce. If you run, the episode drops early." "Neutral means cameras and multiple exits," I warned. She nodded with something like respect. "Bring your partner, bring your friend with clearance. Leave your fear outside or it'll eat you." We convoyed 3 cars deep through back streets. I kept the tablet in my lap and scrolled. Contact named Riveter appeared beside the symbol. Notes tied Riveter to 2 recordings and a producer. My phone pinged, new message from the earlier rival. "Change of plan, meet moved to 9. They were accelerating the drop to beat us. I forwarded the update to both allies at once. We entered a co-working space with guards at desks. Badges checked, IDs scanned, doors unlocked in sequence. One glass office waited with a table and outlets. I sat nearest the exit and opened a new file. The Blazer woman built a secure repository with quick hands. She mirrored the ledger and hashed the output. Chain of custody started, she announced in a low tone. Anything edited afterward will expose itself. He took the far chair and stared at his phone. His thumb hovered, then pressed out a single text. No grand speeches, just a time and a place. He was summoning one of the initials. I leaned in to the scarfed woman and lowered volume. If he gets hurt, I go nuclear, I told her. You're already radioactive, she replied, almost admiring. Use it or it will use you. The limper slid a drive across the table and waited. It holds the audio prompts clients heard, he said. Plus one internal training file. I connected it and played the first clip. Leave the time and the target. Same voice from the guard's place, colder now. A click at the end revealed a tail tone. I scrubbed back and pinpointed the carrier's signature. The Blazer woman smiled like a lock had turned. That pattern ties to a specific platform, she said. We can subpoena logs if this escalates. Or quietly nudge the host to freeze queues. Freeze them, I urged, tasting the clock in my mouth. Stall the upload with a policy review. She tapped a message to someone I couldn't see. Hold initiated, she whispered, watching for confirmation. He stood and paced once along the window. I can't let them weaponize my grief, he said. I reached out and caught his wrist gently. Then fight now with facts, not fists. The scarfed woman watched us and softened a degree. You two weren't supposed to align, she remarked. Your friction drove interest, harmony kills engagement. Maybe kill it, I answered and meant it. Her phone buzzed, she read the screen and frowned. Your booster's assistant wants a side meeting, she reported. They claim remorse and one off the list. I laughed once sharp enough to cut paper. Remorse shows up with receipts, I told her. Otherwise it's just choreography. She pocketed the device and tilted her head. Spoken like someone done being scripted. The van outside shifted 2 spaces closer. A silhouette leaned on the wheel and clicked something. He limper twitched toward the blinds but stopped. I stood and looked straight through the glass. Stay on task, the Blazer woman reminded softly. Finish the public record before the storm. I typed a statement with times and linked files. I signed digitally and hit publish on a certified ledger. A green check appeared, then another from the mirror. We had a time-stamped anchor nobody could erase. The scarfed woman let out a held breath. Now my clients lose control of the cut. Good, I answered, not letting the rush distort me. Now we move to names. She nodded once and slid a printed page over. Here are the buyers and their runners. I scanned the list and found J spelled out. I also found a third initial none of us expected. F. Who's F? I asked, heart thudding in ugly rhythm. She hesitated for the first time tonight. Fund manager, anonymous in public, loud in private. He bankrolls nostalgia revivals and reputation trades. Lives 4 miles from where you met today. He lowered into his chair like a string cut. That's the man who offered condolences, he muttered. Same number as the text that warned me. My spine went rigid and stayed there. Bring F here, I told the scarfed woman. Or put him on speaker with the recorder running. She weighed the odds in the van outside. He won't come, he'll send a proxy. Then we corner the proxy in a place we choose, I said. The track again, 10-5 like their ritual. The limper nodded involuntarily at the precision. You learn fast, he muttered, not unkindly. The Blazer woman checked the hold on the upload. It's delayed 1 hour pending policy review, she said. We bought time, not safety. I pushed my chair back and stood tall. We end this before the hour flips, I declared. Track gate live capture clean audio. He rose with new steel in his posture. No more running, he agreed, eyes locked to mine. We filed out with the ledger clone twice. The van rolled forward and then peeled off. 2 motorcycles replaced it like chess pieces advancing. The scarfed woman cursed under her breath and squared her shoulders. Back at the field, we split into positions by instinct. He stood near the back gate with the limper. I waited by the bleachers with the Blazer woman. The scarfed woman walked the infield with her phone up. At 10:05 on the dot, a figure approached the fence. Not F, a courier with a cap and a bag. He whistled that old 2-note signal the guard described. My skin prickled and then settled into focus. Name, I called, keeping volume low and steady. He lifted the bag and flicked his wrist once. Papers flashed inside like bait and switch. Collecting for vice, he muttered, turning slightly. I moved to cut him off at the hinge. He feinted left and found my partner waiting. We boxed him without touching, a neat corridor of bodies. Set the bag down, I ordered, eyes on his hands. He glanced toward the trees and considered a sprint. The motorcycles revved like wolves smelling blood. He dropped the bag and backed away slowly. No harm if I leave, he pleaded, sweating. Who triggered tonight's rush? I demanded, stepping closer. He swallowed and jerked his chin toward the road. F's Fixer's same emblem as your card. Payment doubled if the drop reached you. We're here, the bag's here, the mics are live, I said. Say the Fixer's full handle into my phone. He leaned in, resigned to the pin. Riveter, he whispered, eyes begging for mercy. The Blazer woman repeated the name for the record. She sent a blast to freeze Riveter's known accounts. The scarfed woman spoke into her device like a prayer. Vice is vacating the board, she announced to an unseen channel. The motorcycles cut engines and faced the street. Our courier stared at the ground and didn't run. He was calculating penalties and choosing the least brutal. I opened the bag and saw contracts in a thumb drive. I held the drive up and met his gaze. If I find minors in these files, I torch everyone, I warned. His head snapped up and panic flared. Nothing like that, he blurted, voice breaking. Then you live if this checks out, I replied. Walk away now and vanish for a week. He obeyed and faded into the trees without flare. The motorcycles followed at a safe distance, curious. We regrouped at the center line with quick breaths. He put a hand on my shoulder, grounding me. Whatever this turns into, we own it, he said. I nodded and let the fear convert to fuel. The Blazer woman plugged the drive into a sanitized rig. File tree open with tidy folders and track names. One folder held our faces with dates and captions. Another listed the buyers in tidy columns. She copied everything and sealed the container with a code. Evidence locked, she declared, meeting my eyes. I exhaled for the first time in minutes. Then my phone vibrated with a caller ID I recognized. Ev. I showed the screen to the circle and D answered. End it, a calm voice ordered, patient and bored. You're late, we already started. I'm not late, I answered, voice flat and steady. You're loud though, I let silence pull him closer. You don't control this cut anymore. He chuckled once, slow and patient like a metronome. Walk away, he said, tiny click in the background. Turn off your toys and sleep like a saint. No, I said, watching the field and counting breaths. You go on record with your real name. He paused long enough to show teeth through the line. You forgot who carries the server keys. Keys bend to policy holds, I told him. We triggered one with receipts and hashes. A second line joined with a muffled pop. Riveter's voice slid in, calm and slick. Let's discuss a timing adjustment, the voice purred. The Blazer woman lifted a finger and started recording. You lifted voice prompts from a protected platform, she cut. Your queue is frozen under emergency review. Riveter exhaled like this was a game, not risk. Cute stall, the mirror upload bypasses shaming. I glanced at him by the gate and raised my chin. He nodded and sent the address he had teased. A pin looked back from my screen with a rooftop. Mirror sits in a private rack, I said. F laughed, empty and bored, like daytime television. Chase cables all night if that thrills you. We will, I replied, eyes on the limper. Or you can trade the proxy for mercy. The scarfed woman circled us and checked angles. 2 bikes incoming from the east path, she warned. We shifted positions without breaking the call. My stomach locked and then found its rhythm again. End it, F repeated, tone thinner now. We already started the teaser stream. Not anymore, the Blazer woman whispered, eyes bright. She flashed a text from her contact, held again. I dropped my voice a notch and aimed for bone. You weaponized a high school non-event for cash. You groomed a ghost and sold it as fate. You keep pushing, I fall tonight. Another long pause, then a near whisper, colder. You think we fear affidavits? F asked. We fear boredom and broken momentum. Both are fatal to product. I stopped giving him room and stepped in hard. You forgot the human you tried to monetize. He stands 20 feet away with a recorder. He will speak first on the record now. I lowered the phone and motioned him forward. He met me at the center line and stiffened. I put the device under his mouth and waited. His voice came out low and very clear. You used my morning to bait her return. You paid people to imitate her voice. You sold our names to fans of collapse. I want my father's last week left alone. Riveter cleared their throat and tried to pivot. Your emotions are valid, the smooth voice offered. Let us frame them with care and reach. He laughed once and it sounded like steel. No reach, he said, knife quiet and final. Reach equals theft when consent is missing. Try me again and meet my attorney. The limper stared at him with something like regret. F clicked his tongue, a little metronome again. Final offer, he murmured. Take a buyout and vanish for a year. I raised my eyebrows at the scarfed woman and smiled. Double your offer by midnight, I proposed, voice cool. Wire it to a victim fund, not us. Shut down all cuts with our names. Then sign a confession with dates. Silence, then a door in the distance creaked. The bikes idled closer and watched our triangle. The blazer woman held up 3 fingers and waited. Her screen lit, a contact replied with one word, approved. Hold extended to dawn, she reported under breath. Primary host closed the mirror pathway. Riveter swore without any charm now. You threaded a needle we built ourselves. You built a trap, I answered, chin high. You forgot we can weld our own tools. A flat air leak through his teeth, irritated. Ugly language for a love story. I focused past the jab and kept cutting. Here's the new schedule, I told him. At 11, we post the ledger and recordings. At 11:05, your initials become names. You won't, he said, and I heard panic. You need safety more than spectacle. Spectacle sells, I replied, but safety writes policy. Policy loves time stamps more than money. Riveter dropped off the line without goodbye. The click felt like a door slamming upstairs. F inhaled, held, then let it out slow. Clock yourself, he said, trying for steady. Clock running, I answered, meeting the blazer's eyes. She nodded and put a hand on her bag. Target rooftop rack room 10 minutes away. Security light triggers at the stairwell. I lifted the phone again, last chance. Wire the fund and name your accomplices. Or we see you on the front page. The field hummed like it remembered our feet. F scoffed, softer now, send the routing details. I'll verify your fund exists. You have 3 minutes before I hang. The scarfed woman typed out strings and hit send. We moved quick and clean, leaving footprints for lawyers. The limper stuck close, bleached by adrenaline. He limped faster than before and didn't complain. He knew running wouldn't save him anymore. We hit the rooftop stair and poo. Shed through. The door gave a stubborn shudder, then yielded. The rack room breathed heat like a feral thing. I flashed the permit from the blazer's contact and entered. A tech looked up and reached for a switch. Don't, I said, tone like a baton strike. He froze and watched the blazer woman approach. She flashed a badge number and took his station. Mirror queue located, she said, tight with focus. Secondary host live in 38 minutes. Her hands moved with certainty built from bad nights. She killed 5 connections and replaced them with decoys. The scarfed woman stood by the door like a hinge. Riveter will try to root through a backup, she warned. Watch for a tunnel with a friendly name. I scanned the list and found a cheerful alias. Found it, I said, tapping the screen twice. Quarantine and log with a note, she replied. I wrote one line, unauthorized distribution under review. Then I saved the log and snapped a photo. My phone buzzed with a bank confirmation. Wire received 10 digits, fund enriched. F followed the first step to the letter. I exhaled through my nose and kept working. Confession, I texted, sending a template with blanks. Sign and return within 5 minutes. No reply, 1 minute, 2, 3. Stalling, the scarfed woman muttered, eyes on the hall. He texted instead, 1 sentence. You still owe me a scene. I looked at the message and felt a choice. No going back once I answered this one. You want a scene, I typed, hands steady. You get a live one with witnesses. Stadium service tunnel in 15. I hit send and stared at the rooftop rail. Are you baiting him? The blazer woman asked quietly. Yes, I said, ready to own it. He loves process and audience. We give him both with a leash. She worked faster, almost smiling. Backup's dead, mirrors paralyzed, main host asleep. Your confession clock still ticks, she added. 2 minutes left or we publish without him. We sprinted the stairs and hit the lot. The bike shadowed us from a distance. He drove with the limper beside him, jaw set. I rode with the blazer woman and the scarfed watcher. We reached the tunnel early and took positions. My legs shook once, then decided to hold. I placed my phone on live record and waited. I was done playing in their cut. F walked in like a man touring his own gallery. A smaller figure trailed him with a case. He stopped 3 yards out and smiled, patient. You invited me, brave or foolish? I didn't blink, confession first. He lifted a hand and the smaller figure opened the case. Pages inside, neat and crisp like contracts. He plucked one and offered it like a favor. Drafted by your ally, he said, eyes on me. Countersigned by a proxy you already named. The scarfed woman took it and checked the marks. She nodded once and passed it to the blazer. I didn't touch it yet, read the line. He cleared his throat and spoke, bored and smooth. We contracted third parties to simulate communications, he read. We targeted 2 subjects for narrative development and sale. Who bankrolled the buy? I asked, moving closer. He hesitated long enough to show me the seam. J is listed, he answered, eyes sliding away. Plus F through layered vehicles. Names, I pushed, pressing the wound. He smiled and tasted the last drop of control. Print them if you dare, he challenged. I will call it ambitious journalism. The blazer woman raised her phone and took a shot. Confession captured with time and location, she said. Your counsel can argue lighting and angles later. His jaw tensed as the last defense crumbled. Release your people, I told him, voice even. Disband Vice and return all data to subjects. He considered pretending to negotiate and gave up. Fine, he said, but you will regret fame. I'm choosing privacy, not headlines, I answered. You built the spotlight and missed the audience. People crave endings that heal. Try selling that for once. He flicked a final look at my partner near the gate. Old flames rarely warm twice, F said, almost kind. Mostly they burn. My partner stepped forward with a calm I hadn't seen before. Then we light our own hearth, he replied, steady as stone. No spectators, no donors, no strings. He reached for my hand and stopped a breath away. Only if you want that. My throat closed and then opened again. I want clean air, I told him. No scripts, no ghosts, no handlers. He nodded, eyes bright with fierce relief. The scarfed woman pulled my sleeve and pointed. The bikes rolled backward, giving space without surrender. The limper leaned against a pillar and looked smaller. He knew he was stepping off a moving train. Go home, I told him, softer than before. Send me the last 2 client names. He wiped his face and nodded, then limped away. A man leaving a game that was killing him. The blazer woman handed me the signed confession. Filed and mirrored, she reported, breath quick but calm. You 2 should disappear for a week. We will handle the rest. Not vanish, I said, choosing the word carefully. Just unplug and choose our own channel. I looked at him and found the answer waiting. He squeezed my fingers and kept them. My phone buzzed one more time, stubborn and small. A new text from an unknown source blinked. Nice ending until the reboot. I smiled without joy and typed a final line. No reboot, we pulled the power. I hit send and shut the screen for good. We walked toward the tunnel mouth and didn't look back. The night felt like something we could actually keep.